Hey guys, right, time for a bit of an update on the Grundig 3028. At this stage I believe all of the drive cords are now fitted, so the AM one went without a hitch. The FM one caused me a little bit of grief. Anyway, I'll have a look around. So the AM one you can actually see because of the spring here when I move the AM dial, which is the default, so that one works just grand. The FM one works, but I'll show you the problem there now in a minute. The big problem with the FM cord was the trailer sheet. The trailer sheet clearly shows the FM cord here as 14.5 inches long and 36.5 inches long. So without hesitating, I just made up two new cords to those lengths, only to discover it's about 7 inches too short when you do that. So I went hunting around, and on the RMorg site I found a German version, and sure enough these are the proper dimensions for the AM, and these are for the FM, and as you can see one of them is actually a meter long, which is well over the 36 inches. So I had to remake them and start over, and it seems to be okay. The other little problem I have with it is the clutch mechanism here, because there's plenty of drive when you're in AM mode, but when I go into FM mode, it works okay, but it has a tendency to slip, and so I have a feeling that these the rubber pad in here is just probably too worn. But so I'll probably be back to that at some point, but I think it's good enough for now that we can get the rest of the radio going and then see where we go. So I've got the rotating antenna working as well, so it's okay. I put a Molex connector on the top of the output transformer, like I said I was going to, because I figured I'll be using this thing with and without the speakers, as I find various things that need fixing. Another little challenge is the Magic Eye tube. So the one I have, which is it says it's a new old stock, but if I look at how it fits, you have this round clamp, which sort of sits in this groove like this. However, in order for that to happen, this diameter is now significantly less than the diameter of the tube, and I'm kind of assuming that you wouldn't want metal to glass anyway, so you'd want to line this with something to protect the glass. So I have a feeling I might have to make up something else to replace this bracket, because I don't think it's going to work with this guy here. However, it's not going to stop me moving ahead, and so we'll carry on. Had a little bit of a flap with the mains as well, so I'll turn it around and explain that bit. So this is the mains panel, fuse panel, and I had a look at it, and the fuse that was in here had clearly, number one, that there was a very loose connection, so it was just flopping around on one side. Number two, the fuse that was in here had already blown and had been sort of manually repaired, so when I took the fuse out, one end of it just fell off, and you could clearly see all the, if you like, melted copper where it had popped before. Anyway, I was cleaning it all up, and I noticed that if you look at the drawing and indeed what's etched on this phenolic panel here, you can put the fuse for the different voltages, so it's 110, 125, 220, and 160. And so the fuse was in here in the 160 slot, and I thought that's can't be very good. Anyway, after various following of wires and stuff, it would seem like what's happened is the 160 tag for the transformer primary is disconnected, and instead it looks to be there's a sort of a workaround, which I presume is for the UK market, where this big 100 ohm 10 watt resistor is plugged in, and it comes round here to the other side where the 220 winding is connected. And so I presume this way then you connect your mains to the center point here, it goes off around by this resistor to the transformer, and I assume that was to deal with the fact that your mains voltage is probably more than 220. So anyway, a little bit of a flap, but we got there. At least I understand it now, so I'll feel more comfortable when it comes to being able to test that the voltage here is in fact 220 and that this dropper is the right value. Unfortunately, this resistor originally was much further down, and it's rather badly burned a lot of these other wires for the primary, and I think it's just pure heat, but there's a lot of bare copper in there, so might have to do a bit of tidying up with that as well. So yeah, apart from that, it's just been general cleanup. I've ordered up a non-polarized capacitor for the top there. Hasn't arrived yet. And from the other restores I've been looking at, people said they tend to leak. So I probably don't want to go firing this thing up until I have that replaced, being as it's in a fairly important position. Right, I think that's about the highlights for the actual chassis itself. Got the dialight bulbs back in and rewired. Yeah, it's looking halfway decent at this point. And again, just remember this is a temporary setup here because I replaced the selenium rectifier with the silicon one. And so when I know what the final version of that resistor is, so I get my 280 volts on the HT there, then I'll set up a permanent way of installing whatever the final value of that resistor is. So I think that's about it. Just a little bit on the cabinet, so I'll have a quick look at that. Oh, incidentally, while talking about drawings and drive cards and things, I did find these are okay to a certain extent in terms of how to route the wiring, but I found another drawing up on the RMorg site which gave a nice three-dimensional view of how to route the drive cards and stuff. So that made life somewhat easier. So no big changes for the cabinet so far. I mean, all these speakers will have to come out at some point and all be cleaned up and checked and all. But for the moment I've just been retracing the wires to make sure I understand how all this thing is hooked up. And I made a cable for the with the Molex on the end to connect to the output transformer, so I can connect and disconnect as the thing moves along. The cabinet itself is in reasonable nick. This back foot here is a bit of a DIY job, so that'll have to be, we can do better than that. And the other one at this end is damaged, so I'd say both back feet there will need to be replaced with the proper felt inserts and so on. And so yeah, I'd say we're getting close. Once I get that non-polarized cab for the output transformer, we'll be getting to the stage where we can connect up some electric to it and see what happens. That's it for now.